I just used my air hammer and air hammered out that little nub that I had to cut out. And in fact, there it is. And the bolt head flew over here. That's the bolt head. That little cage that holds in that captive nut was pried out a bit. So I just took the dead blow to it, and I'm trying to get this through here right now. That's the last little bit. Once that's all done, I'm going to cut out the exhaust. I've already fit up the header. I have a stainless steel cheap header that eBay special, the tri-Y design. So, but it produces quite a bit of torque. So over standard log style headers. So anyways, you can see quite a bit of buildup of gunk everywhere. That's why that side of the transmission was just, I mean, it's even on, you know, the passenger side as well. So quite a bit of cleanup ahead of me. Probably a solid day just cleaning up the engine bay. But I'll get that all cleaned up. I might touch up paint, a little bit of a rust spot there. Unfortunately, this whole section is one piece, so you can only buy it in one piece. So these bolts hold down the fender, and this ties into the front rails system somehow, this inner fender liner. See it right there? Yeah. So I'd have to get a spot welder, a drill bit, drill that out and remove this whole thing just to replace the sections. And I will cut it out here in the flats, right where this flat part is, some kind of delineation line. And it's just literally for the hood support and hood catch. So I get a new hood catch, cut this out, splice that one in, tack it in, you know, carefully as I can, and then get rid of these massive rust spots. So it's just an eyesore for right now. I just want to clean this extra section up. Eventually the whole car will get repainted when I get around to doing the massive amount of body work that's required where the damage was done for this car. But yeah, so that's today's work, basically just cleaning things up, getting things ready so that I can clean the bay. But I got to reorganize the whole garage, get rid of a few things in order to make space for rebuilding the transmission. So I was hoping to have the transmission broken apart and rebuilt, and I started looking around realizing I don't want to continue to work in this clutter, so I need to declutter the garage and go from there. So this block is going to go to the machine shop. I've got to clean the head up. I rearranged the garage. I've put casters on my press so this can wheel around and get out of the way. It's locks. I welded on the casters, and then here's the back half of another Cabriolet that I went somewhat local. Guy is about 150 miles away, 153 I think was the grand total, but he has quite a few Cabriolets on his land that he scraps and sells the parts off of, and he gets down to the shell like this. And yeah, I got this whole rear quarter. This panel cannot be grabbed as a patch panel anymore, but there's a crease back here that's punctured and it's peeled out. So the car was hit pretty good on this side. Right back there where that rust, that's not the bad part, it's up here. There's a bad crease that's split open. So that all needs to be replaced. That split is not good. You can't see much from this other side. Strut towers look okay, but that crease on the other side of the strut tower is what I'm worried about. So I need this. And they didn't fix the inner damage, they just fixed the outer damage, and when they did it, they did a terrible job. There's paint texture, like it looks like they brushed the paint on, so you can see that in the, if it's coming across in the video, but obviously you see up underneath here, just terrible painting job, right? And then down here in the jam, I think I've shown this before, there's a terrible job down here in the jam, and there's a little bit of rust, signs of rust here and there, and then obviously there's pretty good amount of rust where it's rusting through down here underneath the clipper kit. So clipper kit's got to come off. This whole panel is basically got to be stripped down to bare metal so I can see where all the rust is, because I don't think they treated anything if they did this quick and shitty of a job. I mean, you can see the paint here. Look at the texture on it. It's bad. So the whole thing needs to be readdressed. But this looks original and looks good. In fact, I know it's original because it's rusting on the inside, where these typically tend to rust right along. Oops, sorry, cut you out of focus there. right along there. That's rust through in spots, but the way that the panel, let's see if I can get this to focus. The way the panel's lipped in, get that bright backlight, here we go. The way that panel's lipped in, I can strip this down and probably fix it. Might not even need patching. I might just need to go down to bare metal and then throw some primer on it and then repaint the whole thing. But I've got paint and body experience, not a lot, but enough. And with the welding, there's not much you can't do yourself. It's just time. And I got plenty of that with this car. So that's probably 2 years in the future, maybe 2 or 3. I told the wife I'd get back to this project. I'll knock out the engine and transmission, get everything back in, all new steering components, all new suspension components, and all new braking components. So I've got all the parts now. I've had 4 years to collect them, and I finally went ahead and bought the remaining bits and bobs over the last 2 months. So refocusing on this project, get the whole thing back in. I've stripped all the metal down, primed it, painted it. Any part that was metal, that was carbon steel, has this, and I haven't touched the aluminum parts off the engine yet. So yeah, lots of work coming, but these panels are in great shape. So this whole rear end, I've got all the skin, so when I go to cut through this and I find the rust, I don't have to replace the whole section, obviously, but I now have the right curvature of this outer skin and the inner skin to cut exact patches from. So I'll cut the patch out, eyeball it where it's at roughly on here, and then take the template, lay it on here, and then trace it, and then, you know, obviously make sure everything's right and make the cuts, transfer the parts over, tack it in, connect all my tacks, stitch, tack it all the way around, and then, you know, regular body work. We'll cover that when I get to it. And then after it's running mechanically, I'll tend to this a couple years from now. So this is down the road. Okay, so I was blowing through these little sanding scrolls. Even the tapered ones on the heavy grit were just wasting through on this casting flash. So I went ahead to burr to it, and I got all the casting flash out that I could get to. Sorry for the harsh light. Let me turn this back. Get a good idea. The only flash that's really left is just right in the deep recesses of the bosses for the valve guides. Otherwise, all cleaned up. Intake is gasket matched on the head side. I'll take the intake manifold tomorrow, somewhere in that pile of junk, and do the same thing on the other side of the gasket. Flip it over, mark it out, scribe it, and then wallow it out to gasket match. The idea here isn't flow for this so much as you don't want all this airflow going into and hitting a harsh edge, and it's like hitting a brick wall, and then it's got to tumble and swirl around it all kinds of weird, and that's right where you want nice good flow right as the valve opens, and then as it pulls itself down it should tumble in the cylinder, not tumble on its way in. So yeah, the bowls look really good. Cleaned out all the flash that I could get to, and not too worried about the seats, and I didn't hit any of the seat fronts. I hit all the seat edges, which I don't care about because it's going to the machine shop. They're going to cut it out and put new seats in. So new seats, new valve guides. I'll get it back and reassemble everything. So yeah, stoked about this. Took out a little bit of material, not much. Wasn't trying to, you know, raise the roof or any of that stuff and get wild, but I did want to kind of open up the passages just ever so slightly. I will probably put a mild cam in. Why not? I'm already in the thing, and it's not going to cost that much. So maybe 150 bucks, 200 bucks shipped for a nice mild street cam. Keep in mind, it's a 1.8 head going on a 2-liter block, so it's already underflowing what the 2 liters designed for. So if I open it up just slightly, put a mild cam on it, this thing should liven up nicely and still be very streetable for an automatic transmission. So that's the plan. This block, this 2-liter ABA is going in. I'm going to take, as you can see, I pulled the crank out when I first got it. The mains on this have wear on the top side on the right and on the bottom side of the bearings on the left. So it's almost as if the crank is wobbling. So I got to get the crank checked and straightened if it's wobbling and all that good stuff. So I'm just going to hand them all the parts and say, tell me what's wrong with it. Tell me what bearings I need. Do you need to polish the journals? Can it still stay in spec? If so, standard bearings. If not, oversized, so on and so forth. And hopefully it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. But yeah, this beast, this little guy should be running pretty pretty soon. I figure I'll have it fired up by the end of January if everything goes as planned. So the plan is get it roadworthy, enjoy it for a year or two, and then a winter or two from now, build a rotisserie. I'm going kind of crazy here, but yeah, build a rotisserie and just strip the thing and pull the engine and trans and all the new suspension components out of it and just get down to bare metal and just overhaul this thing and make it into a trailer queen that we will enjoy driving on the street. So that's the plan.